Alright, this one has been a long time coming. We are finally able to review the new pair of epic encounter boxes from Steamforged Games, Steppe of the Lizard Thane and Nest of the Dinosaur. And many thanks to Steamforged Games for sending them our way to review. We are starting off here with the minion box with 18 minis in 6 different sculpts, focusing on lizard folk. Definitely an underrepresented race in D&D and Pathfinder. And this set at least partially focuses on a roadside ambush. So the map and its environmental features are going to be something that you can reuse in a lot of your games. While this set gives us lots of new lore that we can use for our lizard folk, I'm kind of a fan of the Pathfinder lizard folk lore. In that game, they are called the Eruxi, and they have a long history that they keep alive through epic poems and evocative carvings and ancestral rites that they use with bones. And they love astrology, and they read the stars to pretend the future. There's a lot more to them than just being scaled fighters. But of course, this box will give us some new lore on lizard folk that you can take into your adventures, and then you can use the minis and maps for whatever story you want to tell. So let's take a closer look at Steppe of the Lizard Thane. Before we jump in, we are going to make a new spell. Yes, we are continuing our series of creating new spells based on the cards in the animated Spellcraft deck Volume 1 by Hit Point Press. You compare the cards in this deck with their other animated spell cards to add your own unique spells into the mix, and we are going to hook you up with some of our own. I saw this card and I thought, this is what I look like when I see a dessert tray, and thus was born the spell Irresistible Cake. You want to distract your target from attacking someone you care about, like yourself? Make them see cake instead. They will slash at it and hopefully not hit anyone important. You have been warned, the cake is a lie. You can pick up the animated Spellcraft deck at animatedspells.com and grab your new fancy spell at gallantgoblin.com. And of course, all those links are right there below me. There's nothing groundbreaking here as we open up our box. The box has our adventure book, our double-sided map, and a host of unpainted minis ready to hit your painting table and then your gaming table. Let's start, as always, with those minis. Our basic mini is the Lizard Folk Warrior, and you get 6 of them in the box. It uses the basic Lizard Folk stat block from the basic rules, which is of course reprinted for you in the back of the adventure book. Now this particular mini doesn't do a great job of representing the stat block, which includes a spiked shield, a heavy club, and some javelins. I like the sculpt, but your description of the creature in your game may differ from the mini if you want to do a good job of representing their true abilities in the stat block. Next up is the Lizard Folk Peltast, which is a word that I had to look up. Peltast is from Greek, and it is a type of light infantry named for the kind of shield that they carry. Now, this fella doesn't have a shield, but he does carry a sling. He's pretty much a weaker version of the Lizardfolk Warrior who focuses on harrowing the enemy from the distance to keep the pressure on. There are 3 of them in the box. This beefy boy is the Lizardfolk Warden. He comes with a deeper HP pool and a harder hitting melee attack, plus a pretty high AC. But he doesn't have any ranged abilities, so if you're able to keep them at a distance, there's not much they're going to be able to do to you unless someone passes them a javelin. There are 3 Wardens in the set. The Lizardfolk Prophet is not based on the Lizardfolk Shaman from the Monster Manual. The Prophet is armed with spells like Gust of Wind, Scorching Ray, Bane, Burning Hands, and Mage Armor. He has a staff as well, and his jaws, of which he can use in a pinch, or a bite. You get 2 Prophet minis to help keep the pressure on during the adventure. Next up is the most exciting mini in the set, the Lizardfolk mounted on a Sabre-Toothed Tiger, and I am all about this. The adventure gives you stat blocks for both the rider and the tiger itself, so you can use true mounted combat rules if you want to. Now, this is a mini that I really want to see painted up. The level of difficulty might be a little higher, but I bet you can do some amazing work with it. Finally, we have the boss of the encounter, the Lizard Folk Thane, who is quite the brute. Along with his melee attacks, he can also passively grant advantage to the attacks of any Lizardfolk allies standing next to him. And he can murder his nearby allies to add their remaining hit points to his own, which is kind of awesome. Just surround him with support troops and let him rip through the enemy lines, but if the opposing side has any AoEs, it might be game over for the Lizardfolk. The first part of this little adventure features a roadside ambush with quite a few environmental gameplay features. First, the double-sided map, as always, is 16 by 23 inches and printed on a nice silken paper stock. One issue that I've had with recent Epic Encounter maps is that they can be really dark, and it is very nice to have this nice, bright map finally. The Epic Encounter maps are a bit unique and looking almost like aerial photographs. The real issue with this is that they're at an isometric perspective, so one side of the map is definitely going to be looking at them upside down, which is an issue you don't have with that directly overhead perspective. But the isometric perspective also helps give the map a sense of relative elevation, which is pretty important here as the lizard folk attack from higher ground, and as we learn from Star Wars, that's the only thing that really matters in a battle. One of the great things about Epic Encounters is that they give you a lot of interesting environmental features that have gameplay implications, and they're not strictly tied to the adventure in the box. So you can reuse this map with your bandits or your kobolds or your stone giant ambushes. Here you have the soft ground of the cavern floor, which your PCs can get stuck in. You have various plants and a d6 rolling table to determine their various effects. You have rocks that can be rolled down the embankment. You have logs blocking the path that might have hidden traps inside that will trigger when the logs are touched or moved. Honestly, this may be the best Epic Encounter maps in terms of replayability. The other side of the map has a lot of promise as well. Here you have a makeshift campground formed from a traveling caravan. Perhaps this is a caravan the PCs are traveling with. Maybe it's one that they came across in their nighttime travels. Maybe it's a merchant caravan. Maybe it's a traveling group of Vistani. Maybe it's just a small trading outpost just off a well-trodden road. Again, we do get several gameplay implications from the map features. The contents of the wagon, for example. The roll of a d6 might result in a trapped stash of loot, or a stowaway, or some scattered money, or some precious cargo. The book also gives you rules if your PCs want to dig a few traps in to protect themselves overnight. And of course, 2 of the wagons have mounted crossbows, which also have rules. And as always, the book gives you just a ton of possible lore about the lizard folk, their history, their religion, and several aspects of their society presented as rumors. Plus quite a few fairly elaborate adventure hooks to pull your players into the encounter from whatever they may have been doing at the time. It is up to you as the game master to pick and choose which bits of lore and which adventure hooks work best for the story you want to tell. And of course, you can just use the Pathfinder D&D or your own lore as well if you want. You all know what to expect by now. This is a solid set with lots of well-sculpted minis, and due to the nature of the map and the encounters, you can probably get more mileage out of this set than most. You can also pair it up with Nest of the Dinosaur, which we will be reviewing here very soon. I do still see areas where these boxes could improve. In the lore section of the booklets, they often mention interesting relics or magical effects, and I would love to see some new spells or magic items added into the sets. That would also give players something that they could carry on in their adventures to remind them of their battle with the lizard folks, something thematic and story-driven. Steppe of the Lizard Thane is available now for between $40 and $55, so be sure you shop around. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section down below. We'll have our review of the accompanying boss box, Nest of the Dinosaur, probably later this week or so be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that. In that video, I'll also give you a little tease about the next 2 Epic Encounter boxes coming out later this summer. Also, remember to pick up your free spell at gallantgoblin.com and the deck of animated spellcraft cards over at animatedspells.com. This month, we are also continuing our coverage of the Onslaught expansions, which has some really interesting minis, so stay tuned for those. And until next time, stay safe, have fun, love each other, and I will see you next time at the Gallant Goblin.